So in a long-term care setting, it's not unusual to have residents who keep asking the same question over and over again. And the question could be about something that is really going to happen or something that they believe is going to happen. And the rules that apply would be the same as if I were a family caregiver, that I want to respond to the person with curiosity and with patience. So for instance, if I was a professional caregiver in long-term care and one of my residents, when's the walk today? When are we walking? And I said, well, walking club, let's see, walking club is going to be at 3:00 today. We're going to be going for a walk at 3:00. And then the resident seeks me out and asks me again, when is the walk? What time is the walk? The walk is at 3:00. Okay. And this happens repeatedly. Why is the person asking me repeatedly when the walk is going to happen? Is it because they love walking and it just isn't coming soon enough? And if they have forgotten that the answer is that walking club is at 3:00? If that's the case, then what I might do is I might write down on a little note, walking club at 3:00 today, and have them tuck it in their pocket. Then when they ask me the question, I can say, oh, check the note in your pocket. But maybe the question is asked repeatedly because they're kind of concerned about walking club today, because maybe there's somebody who they don't like very much who's going to be walking with them and they're getting worried about that. Maybe their feet hurt and they're concerned about being able to actually walk with sore feet. Maybe it's because they don't know if they have the right shoes to go walking. So what I can do is I can pause, and rather than saying, you've asked me this question 6 times, what's going on here? At the 6th time, I might just pause and say, hey, you know what? I'm wondering how you feel about walking club today. Are you excited about walking club? Is there something going on that's making you worried about walking club? So the greatest advice I would offer is that when a person is asking a question repeatedly in long-term care, that rather than get angry, we get curious. And when we just keep giving the answer without asking why, we're not really getting to the root of the problem. So we've talked about repetition in the form of a question. What time's dinner? Or when are we going for a walk? But what about if the repetition is simply that they tell the same story over and over and over again? One of the things that you might consider doing is latching onto a piece of the story and asking them to tell you a little bit more about that. So trying to have them go a little bit more deeply into the story or go to a different place within the story. What that does is it breaks up the monotony. It also helps encourage reminiscence. It helps sort of break that cycle of the same story being told over and over again, because you're now causing them to think more deeply about the story that they're telling you. And if a person is telling the same story over and over again, and it's starting to drive you a little bit crazy, probably the best thing that you can do is think about, how do you get a little bit of a break? Maybe this would be if they're telling you about, maybe a favorite dog, a story about their favorite dog. When they were a kid, they had this dog and they love this dog. Maybe that would be a good time to put on a Zinnia video about dogs and give them sort of an alternative place to spend that passionate thinking about dogs. But if you are finding yourself getting irritated and you don't have another way that you can occupy their time rather than having them repeat the question, it's a good indication that maybe you need a little bit of a break. When you're a caregiver, whether you're a professional caregiver or a family caregiver, and a person is either repeatedly asking a question or repeatedly telling a story, and you want to kind of break that cycle, one of the things that you could do is when they finish telling the story, or perhaps partway through the story, you can say, ooh, hold that thought for a second. Can I have your hands? Hold their hands and breathe together. Yeah, breathe with me. Let's do this again. Oh my gosh, that feels so good. I love taking deep breaths with you. Hey, I had something I wanted to show you. Come with me. And then you move in a different direction. So the way that we talk about using distraction as a way to kind of shift the mood, that can also be something that you use when somebody is telling the same story over and over again. In a long-term care setting, one of the things that you can run into as well is a resident who is irritating other residents because they keep telling them the same story over and over again, especially if one person is more advanced in their dementia. They might be repeating the story, or it could be the person who's less advanced in their dementia, frankly, too, who's just telling the same story over and over again, and one of the other residents is getting anxious. And certainly that's a time that one would need to intervene and remove from the situation, most likely the person who is repeatedly telling the story over and over again. You might be able to trigger a different kind of story. So maybe if the person's story is about something that happened in their childhood, you might be able to encourage them to go in a different direction with their story. Ooh, okay, so this is the part where the boy crosses the street. What was the street? Tell me more about where you grew up. What was it like when you grew up? What time of year does this story take place? So again, inviting a person to go more deeply into a story and in other directions could make it that it's less challenging for the other resident who is hanging out. Or you might need to ask the person who is repeatedly telling the same story to another resident to join you and go do something else together, just to avoid there being any kind of conflict between those two residents.